Am I ashamed of my past? Am I ashamed of doing the only thing that I was ever going to do? Making the only decision I could have ever made based off of my chemistry, my conditioning, and my level of understanding. I could never have made a different decision than the ones I've made. So am I ashamed of that? No. We can only act based on our chemistry, our conditioning, and our level of understanding. So why would I be ashamed of that? I was basically not in control. We are just nature running off. Shame, guilt, regret, these are all things we attach with our ego self, with the actor, when we are identifying with the actor. But when we start to take a step back and be the observer, observing the actor, we realize that these are all games of the mind and the emotions to keep us enslaved in the illusion. We must release this. We must gain a new perspective. We must gain the perspective of we can only act based on our chemistry, conditioning, and level of understanding. We can only ever make one decision, and that's okay. So we don't need to judge ourselves. We don't need to say, I feel guilty for doing this. Why? We were not even in control. We are just nature running off. Imagine if you take that perspective. So you can forgive yourself instantly. Imagine being able to forgive yourself and others instantly, how much that would free your mind. See, it's all part of the game to suppress human consciousness, to keep us in these lower emotional states, these where they can siphon, our controllers can siphon our energy from us. So we must rise out of these lower states. We must release these emotional holds that are on our actor self. Stop identifying with these and learn how to be the observer at all times. Be here now, as Ram Dass said. We need to be the observer, not the actor, and stop identifying. So if you're caught in these states of shame and guilt and regret, what are you regretting? Let's think about it. Why would I regret doing something when it was the only thing I could have ever done? I could not have done another thing. Because why? Because that's what I did. What happens is meant to happen because it happens. That was always going to happen because the universe has everything laid out exactly how it's supposed to in perfection. Nothing is ever misplaced. Not a car goes by your window that is not meant to go by. You don't catch a glance from a stranger that you weren't supposed to catch. Right? So think about this perspective. Add this to our perspective. Our perspective of we are the observer. I am not in control. I am just nature running off. And what is the highest, most powerful thing I can seemingly do? Presence and purification. Because this allows us to get in to the eternal present moment of God's love and be the divine. This is how we work to the highest degree on planet Earth. I've talked about this many times. Being the observer and being the divine conduit. This is how we change our perspective, right? We can immediately forgive ourselves. We can stop living in the past or the future because we are completely focused on staying in the eternal present moment of God's love. So shame, guilt, regret. Try to ascend your perspective. And how do we do this? It can't be forced. How do we get to the point where we can just keep gaining higher perspectives that allow us to escape the illusion more and more. Presence and purification, always focusing on these because they support each other. We need to purify the vessel in order to assist in presence, staying present, right? That's how we evolve. We remove our suppressors, all the things that are suppressing us, and we balance our emotional state so we can then gain higher perspectives and we can become the observer. We can stand in the center of the circle more firmly and stop attaching with things and having biases toward things. That's what keeps us trapped in lower energetic states. That's what keeps us trapped. Being attached and thinking we know keeps us a victim of the suppressors, basically. Thinking we know, because we get caught in the traps. They want us to think we know. Because if we think we know, what if it's a lie? What if it's all deceit in order to keep us at lower vibrational states? They keep us in fear and chaos, to keep us distracted from the present moment, because that is when we'd be able to work most fully with God through us. And they know that. So it's all part of the game. But remember, never have fear. As Dr. Morse says, never have fear. Always trust God. Surrender. Surrender, stay present. Always. There's nothing to stress about. There's nothing to worry about. Everything, no matter what it is happening in perfect divine timing. Because that's the only way it would ever happen. Remember, a lesson, everything's a lesson or a blessing. It's trying to show us something. Every relationship we have is trying to show us where we're still holding on, where we're stuck. There's no mistake in any of our relationships. They all have something to teach us on the path. There's no mistake in any of our jobs. Don't feel ashamed about, I did this in the past and now no, you don't ever need to feel bad about it. Let's say you're working at a slaughterhouse. Might be an extreme example, and then you go vegan, and then you work on yourself, and you raise your consciousness, and then you're not working there anymore. But do you need to feel shame for having done those things in the past? No. Because you were doing the only thing you were ever going to do and you could ever do. Based off of chemistry, conditioning, and level understanding. So it's okay. Your past self is not, don't worry about it. You don't need to hold yourself accountable. Well, that sounds kind of bad, but just think about it in a higher perspective. We're thinking about these things in a higher perspective. Oh, so no one's responsible for anything? No one can... Well, it depends what level you're playing the game. It depends what level you're playing the game. We're talking it from a higher perspective of coming into presence and God's love. That's the perspective we're talking about. And letting us, and balancing our emotions and becoming unconditional love. As always, that's the goal. That's what Jesus was. Why did Jesus preach and give everyone unconditional love? Maybe because he knew they're all doing the only thing they could ever do as part of their chemistry and conditioning. And he had to come and he had to raise their consciousness with unconditional love. That's what raises our consciousness of the whole planet. Unconditional love. Because you are freeing people's minds with unconditional love because they're not used to it. They're from these suppressive states, these non-unconditional love states, these judging states, these ego states. So what we need to do is get into the present moment, purify the vessel, And I am God's eternal love pouring forth. I am unconditional love. That's the goal. And that's how we raise the planet into the light. Namaste.